In 1978, possibility had a smell. It was part gasoline, part hot dust from vacuum tubes, part fresh paper torn from a yellow legal pad. In a narrow workshop behind a hardware store in Cleveland, Ohio, Harold Whitman wore that smell like a second skin. He lived in a world of neatly labeled coffee cans filled with screws, a wall of pegboard hung with wrenches and soldering irons, and a wooden bench scarred by decades of bright ideas that had left burn marks on their way into the world. He wasn't famous, he wasn't rich, but his hands graphite stained, nicked at the knuckles, knew how to coax ord out of broken things. That morning, a pocket-sized device sat in front of him, no bigger than a paperback, with a thumb-sized screen, a row of repurposed typewriter keys, and a gut full of scavenged silicon. He called it the Pocket Data Companion. Today, you'd call it, well, you know. Had been at it 4 months. He stripped gears from a dead adding machine, shaved down a bakelite switch, bent a paperclip into a spring that refused to die. Beneath the hand-cut aluminum casing, a simple board married a low-power chip to a memory module Head ordered from the back of an electronics magazine. Notes, contacts, a calendar that ticked on even after you turned it off, a pocket that remembered, so your brain didn't have to. Back then, the future was heavier. It hummed when you turned it on. It warmed your palm and asked you to believe. He kept a ledger for the build every resistor, each hour. It wasn't the course that scared him, it was the next step. Patents. The word felt like a door with too many locks. Lawyers, forms, drawings, fees. He had a day job fixing washing machines. He had rent to pay and a carburetor to rebuild on a Chevy that refused to pass inspection. The companion, he told himself, could wait until the time is right. Here is the thing about the time is right. It's the most polite disguise procrastination ever learned to wear. The workbench and the world he kept building anyway. Night after night, after fixing other people's appliances, he came home to the patient glow of a desk lamp. He tightened, tuned, and tinkered, practicing a kind of small, stubborn faith. He wrote careful notes in tidy block letters. Battery profile stable at 2, 9V. Key bounce reduced with felt pad. Memory white bug persists, suspect cold solder joint. He tested the companion like a coach running drills. Enter 10 names. Search for 3. Set to reminders 4 times that never came. He imagined it in the breast pocket of every lab coat, resting on every secretary's desk, slipping into every glove compartment. He imagined a salesman in Topeka tapping a phone number at a red light and not losing a lead to the wind. He wasn't alone in that era. Somewhere, in a different garage, a kid named Jobs was training a beige box to draw boxes. Somewhere else, a hobbyist in Tokyo was coaxing the first portable calculators into adding without complaint. The world was fungus with ideas, sprouting in damp corners where nobody thought to sweep. And yet, ideas don't travel alone, they need passports stamped with paperwork. Without that, they can get stuck in customs forever. I think about Harold's ledger sometimes, the way the numbers tried to tame the unknown. Today, we have spreadsheets that recalculate at the twitch of a finger and apps that patent draft while you sip coffee. We live in a world where a provisional patent can be filed online in an afternoon. But the trap hasn't changed. We still wait for a signal from the universe that says, now. We still mistake discomfort for danger and paperwork for punishment. We still let great ideas rot on a shelf because the form looks longer than our patience. The fork in the road that didn't look like a fork pring of 1979 brought a trade show to town. Rows of folding tables, fluorescent lights humming like anxious bees, salesmen with ties loud enough to trip over. Harold walked the aisles, his companion tucked into a jacket pocket that had never expected company. He saw CB radios singing across plastic tablecloths, a calculator watch promising to do math while you check the time, and a typewriter that claimed breathlessly to erase mistakes. He hovered by a booth where a university team displayed a portable terminal, which was portable in the way a picnic table is portable if you bring friends. He felt a jolt. His device could do some of that, without the shoulder pain. He considered pulling it out, asking a question, starting a conversation that would have changed everything. Instead, he slid his hands deeper into his pockets and kept walking. Fear rarely shouts. It clears its throat and suggests you look later. He went home with brochures and a headache. He told himself he needed to tighten a few things up before showing anyone. The keys aren't perfect, he wrote. Screen needs contrast. Power draw still high. Truth is, perfection is a weather pattern that never stops raining once you've given it your umbrella. Here is a modern parallel for anyone keeping score. We still do this. We polish the landing page until the opportunity goes somewhere else. We rewrite the pitch deck twice a week until the meeting evaporates. We wait for confidence to arrive like a package, instead of building it like a chair measured, cut, sanded, and made to hold weight. The ad that felt like a ghost in 1984. Harold sat at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had more grit than grace. He flipped open a glossy magazine. There it was, a full-page ad with a device dressed in chrome dreams, portable, digital, a pocket organizer, contacts, notes, calendar, sleeker than his, prettier too. Different name, same bones. He studied the photo like a detective staring at a blurry suspect. He recognized the compromises, the clever workarounds, the elegant concessions to physics. He recognized himself. If you've never met that feeling, it's hard to describe. It's pride and loss folded into the same envelope. It's hearing your favorite song on the radio and realizing someone else is singing it better because they sang it first in public. He didn't believe anyone had stolen it. Ideas chose more than one host when they were ready to exist. But he did understand a quieter theft. The way procrastination steals the future you might have had and leaves no fingerprints. He wrote a note to himself that night. File something when you can. Don't wait for perfect. He underlined it twice. Then he slid the note into a manila folder labeled patent and tucked it into a drawer that closed with a sound he would remember for the rest of his life. We like to think moments arrive with trumpets. Mostly, they arrive with drawers. The long middle where real life happens, life didn't fall apart. That's important. He kept his job. He fixed toasters, washers, radios. He taught himself to repair VCRs when everyone started bringing in machines with blinking 12 o'clock that refused to stop. He married the woman who liked the grease under his nails and the way he hummed when he concentrated. They had a daughter who loved to push buttons just to see what they did. He built other things. A self-watering planter that kept basil alive long enough to taste like summer. A fan that purred instead of rattled. A set of bookends that secretly hid spare keys. People admired them, used them, forgot they were inventions because they were just useful. The companion gathered dust on a shelf. Every now and then he would pick it up, feel the weight of it, thumb the keys, and smile the way you smile at an old friend's joke you've told too many times. And the world rolled forward. The late 80s brought organizers that beeped. The 90s brought dust that tapped. 2007 brought a phone that taught the world to swipe. And Harold laughed the first time he saw a teenager zoom into a photo. Gravity worked differently for them. If you're waiting for anger here, there wasn't much. What there was, mostly, was a soft ache. The kind you feel when you pass the house you almost bought and noticed the new owners put in the exact porch swing you once pictured there. Sometime in the 90s he tried, belatedly. He bought a book about patents with a cover that looked allergic to color. He highlighted sections about prior art until the page looked like it had a fever. He called an office, left a message, and got a brochure in the mail that answered every question except the ones that mattered. By then, the category had its kings. By then, his idea had been born, named, and put to work in pockets he would never see. There's a lesson here about timing that isn't glamorous. Moving early beats moving perfectly. In technology, in careers, in love, in almost everything except bomb disposal and so forth. A second act that wasn't dramatic. And that's the point. He found a different use for what he knew. He started teaching. Saturday mornings, kids from the neighborhood would gather in the workshop, eyes wide at the smell of ozone and hot metal. He taught them to strip wires and not their patience, to solder with a hand steady enough to sign their name across time. He held up the companion like a museum piece. "This," he said without saying it, "is a story about moving when the light turns green and not waiting for a parade." He told them the truth. If you have an idea, document it, sketch it, date it, share it with someone who isn't your cat. File a provisional if you can, cheap, imperfect, protective like a good raincoat. Build a crude version that works before you build a pretty one that doesn't. Send the email, book the meeting, submit the app, ship something messy and alive instead of guarding something flawless and imaginary. He made them laugh too. He called bureaucracy the world's longest checkout line. He joked that inspiration has the worst timing and always shows up when your hands are covered in grease. He told them perfection was a liar with great hair. His daughter grew up in that shop. She learned to hold a multimeter like a violin bow and to listen to the way electricity complains when it's asked to do too much. She grew into a teenager who rolled her eyes, and then into an adult who stopped rolling them when she needed to fix something at 2 a.m. Years later, she would file her own provisional patent on a device that helped a small hospital track their supplies. She filed it on a Tuesday afternoon after lunch, because that's when she had 45 minutes. She did it because he had taught her that later is not a day of the week. The headline that still stung, and the piece that followed one winter morning around the time phones learned to recognize faces. A headline scrolled past Harold's eyes. A company that started with a pocket computer had passed $1 trillion in market value. He let the number sit there, big and round, like a full moon. He thought about how tools become worlds when given time, vision, and an army of people willing to push through paperwork. He set the phone down and reached for the companion. The battery had long since died. He unscrewed the back, admired the careful chaos of his own early handwriting on the circuit board's margins. He remembered the ledger, the line that read, "Don't wait for perfect." He smiled. He wasn't the man who had built $1 trillion company. He was the man who taught a dozen kids to finish things. He was the man whose daughter filed on a Tuesday. Regret didn't disappear, but it got a job. It became a teacher instead of a jailer. If you want the modern translation of this whole story, here it is in one sentence: ship the draft, file the provisional, publish the post, launch the scrappy version, and let the future meet you halfway. The forms are simpler now. The tools are cheaper. The gatekeepers are fewer, louder perhaps, but fewer. The hardest part is still the first step, the one your feet can take long before your heart agrees you're ready. And if you're worried you'll look foolish, you will occasionally. So what? Looking foolish is how you learn fast. It's how you make the thing real, while everyone else is still making lists. Epilogue: in the safe light of a desk lamp near the end, Harold wrote one more note and taped it inside the lid of the companion's case. Don't leave your best work in a drawer. It wasn't poetry, but it was true. The device stayed on the shelf not as a trophy or a warning, but as a compass needle pointing at next time, sooner. People think life changes with a single yes, but often it's the practice of small yeses that prepares your mouth for the big one. Yes to the sketch, yes to the prototype that looks embarrassed to be seen, yes to the appointment with the clerk who only speaks in form numbers, yes to the email that could be ignored or could be the beginning. There are always reasons to wait: money, time, fear, feeling like an imposter at your own workbench. Wait anyway for buses and bread to rise, but not for your own initiative. The world will not pause for you to get comfortable. It never has. Moral: if you have an idea that won't leave you alone, give it a place to live in the world, not just in your head. The difference between a story you tell with a wince and one you tell with a grin is usually paperwork, a calendar reminder, and an hour you swore you didn't have. File the provisional even if the drawings look like a doctor's handwriting. Build the version that works before you build the version that wows. Share it with one person who might say something useful. The universe rarely rewards perfect intentions. It tends to reward movement. There will be missteps, eye rolls, emails that go unanswered. That's not a sign to stop, that's the initiation fee. And when the ad shows up for the thing you almost brought to life, you'll be able to nod without flinching, because you'll be busy working on the next draft, the next filing, the next release. Don't wait for certainty. Certainty is a lighthouse. You aren't meant to reach, it's meant to orient you while you sail. Put your idea in the water. Let it get a little wet. Then keep going.